General Thompson gave only a brief look at the disheveled woman standing at the base entrance, assuming she was just another person in need of assistance. However, when she lifted her gaze and revealed piercing blue eyes while saying, "Hello, David. Do you recall Operation Thunder Ridge?" his entire body went cold. Standing before him was Captain Sofia Falcon Rodriguez, the aviator who had rescued him 15 years earlier, now appearing as a destitute stranger. The morning rainfall had transformed the Fort Harrison entrance into a muddy quagmire, and General David Thompson found himself behind schedule for his staff meeting when he observed a disturbance at the main entrance. Two security personnel were conversing with what seemed to be a woman experiencing homelessness, their voices carrying that patient yet resolute tone typically used for individuals who required redirection to civilian assistance services. Throughout his 3 decades of military service, General Thompson had witnessed this scenario repeatedly: veterans without homes, families in desperation, and disoriented civilians all eventually making their way to military facilities, seeking assistance, refuge, or simply someone willing to hear their troubles. The guards managed these situations with both professionalism and empathy while simultaneously upholding security measures that prevented unauthorized individuals from accessing sensitive military areas. Sergeant Williams was explaining to the woman, "Ma'am, I comprehend that you're seeking assistance, however this is a restricted military facility. There are civilian organizations in town that can provide help with accommodation and social services." The woman stood with her back toward General Thompson, yet even from afar, something about her posture caught his attention as remarkable. Despite her clearly challenging circumstances, including damaged clothing, unkempt hair, and the overall look of someone who had been surviving on the streets, she maintained herself with a deportment that implied military background. Her posture was upright, her head positioned high, and her hands stayed visible and motionless rather than moving nervously. Throughout the years, General Thompson had cultivated a talent for identifying former military members. Certain subtle signs distinguished veterans from civilians: their stance, their reactions to authority figures, and their instinctive consciousness of their environment. This woman exhibited multiple these traits despite her ragged appearance. General Thompson inquired as he neared the entrance, "Sergeant Williams, what's occurring here?" The sergeant responded, "Sir, this woman is requesting entry to the base. She lacks identification or any clear association with our personnel. We're attempting to guide her towards suitable civilian resources." General Thompson was prepared to recognize the guard's competent management of the situation when the woman pivoted to face him. The instant their gazes connected, his reality transformed in a manner that defied logical comprehension. Those were the identical piercing blue eyes that had gazed back at him through a helicopter windshield during the most terrible moment of his military service 15 years prior. The same unwavering, fearless look that had maintained composure while navigating through hostile gunfire to rescue his surrounded unit from an impossible predicament. The same eyes that belonged to the aviator who had preserved his life along with the lives of 14 additional soldiers during an operation that had failed catastrophically. The voice struck him like a tangible impact when she said, "Hello, David. Do you recall Operation Thunder Ridge?" It was more aged, more weathered, bearing the marks of years of difficulty, but unmistakably recognizable. General Thompson felt his knees weaken as his recollections returned with crushing vividness. Captain Sofia Falcon Rodriguez had been the most talented aviator he'd ever worked alongside, a woman whose piloting abilities approached the extraordinary and whose bravery under attack had achieved legendary status among the units she aided. She had been his companion, his colleague in service, and eventually his rescuer during an operation that should have resulted in everyone's death. However, the woman standing before him showed only a slight similarity to the assured, pristine officer he recalled. Sofia's formerly immaculate uniform had been substituted with ripped jeans and a soiled jacket. Her hair, which she had consistently maintained in regulation military fashion, now fell loose and disheveled. Most startling of all, the pride and assurance that had previously characterized her military bearing appeared to have been supplanted by something that resembled resignation disturbingly. General Thompson's voice emerged as scarcely a murmur, "Sophia. My goodness, what transpired with you?" The security personnel exchanged looks, understanding that their general was acquainted with this woman, yet uncertain about how to continue. The circumstance had obviously progressed beyond standard assistance for the homeless and into domain that demanded different procedures. General Thompson stated, his voice reclaiming some of its typical authority despite his emotional condition, "Sergeant Williams, I'll manage this from here. Please guarantee we have privacy." The sergeant asked, "Yes, sir." Should I notify anyone regarding this situation? General Thompson replied, not presently. Allow me some time to comprehend what's transpiring here. General Thompson guided Sophia away from the entrance to a modest administrative structure where they could converse privately. The walk provided him time to absorb what he was observing, an attempt to reconcile the Sofia Rodriguez he remembered with the woman walking alongside him. 15 years earlier, Captain Sofia Rodriguez had been among the most esteemed helicopter aviators in the Army. Her call sign, Falcon, had been acquired through a mixture of her capability to traverse hazardous terrain at rapid speed and her talent for returning damaged aircraft safely home. She had conducted rescue operations that other aviators wouldn't undertake, inserted special operations teams into hostile areas that conventional thinking deemed unreachable, and removed wounded soldiers from battle zones where survival appeared unattainable. More intimately, she had been General Thompson's nearest companion during his deployment as a young colonel. They had served jointly in the same unit, experienced the same dangers, and formed the type of professional and personal connection that develops between soldiers who entrust each other with their lives routinely. The operation that had strengthened their relationship and ultimately altered both their existences had transpired during the concluding weeks of their deployment. Colonel Thompson's reconnaissance unit had been placed behind enemy positions to collect intelligence on weapons storage and supply pathways. The operation had been standard until everything failed simultaneously. Hostile forces had identified their presence, encircled their location, and eliminated all withdrawal routes. The unit had been trapped in a defensive stance with restricted ammunition, no substantial weapons, and no evident method to reach extraction areas. Traditional rescue attempts would have been suicide operations that achieved nothing beyond increasing the death toll. Captain Sofia Rodriguez had volunteered for a rescue operation that violated every safety procedure and tactical principle in the military manual, piloting a single helicopter into heavily fortified enemy area without aerial support or protective fire to remove personnel from a landing area that was experiencing active hostile assault. Sophia had transmitted to command, "This is Falcon requesting authorization for emergency extraction. I'm proceeding in for Thompson's unit." Command responded, "Negative, Falcon. The landing zone is too dangerous. Wait for aerial support to neutralize enemy locations." Sophia replied, "Sir, they lack time to wait for aerial support. I'm proceeding in now." Sophia had piloted her U-60 Blackhawk helicopter through a barrage of hostile fire that should have eliminated her within the initial 30 seconds. Anti-aircraft weaponry, rocket-propelled grenades, and small arms fire had saturated the air surrounding her aircraft, yet she had somehow succeeded in navigating through the turmoil with the type of exact flying that challenged both physics and reason. The landing area had been a small open space encompassed by hostile positions with incoming fire from 3 angles and barriers that rendered a safe landing nearly unattainable. Sophia had brought her helicopter down in a managed crash that harmed the aircraft but maintained its capability to depart with passengers. She had shouted over the rotor sound and gunfire, "Get on board now. We've got perhaps 30 seconds before they modify their fire and strike us." Colonel Thompson and his 13 surviving soldiers had rushed aboard the damaged helicopter while Sophia maintained the rotors rotating and prepared for what everyone comprehended would be an exceptionally hazardous takeoff under fire. The helicopter had ascended with hostile rounds striking the fuselage and vital systems failing throughout the aircraft. Sophia had piloted the damaged Blackhawk through the same hostile fire that had nearly demolished it during landing, utilizing every portion of her skill and expertise to maintain the aircraft flying long enough to reach Allied territory. They had arrived at the extraction location with the helicopter's engines failing, hydraulic systems damaged, and Sophia struggling to sustain control of an aircraft that was essentially destroying itself during flight. The landing had been managed but forceful, causing injuries to multiple passengers, however no deaths. Sophia had preserved 14 lives that day, including Thompson's. The operation had secured her a distinguished flying cross and acknowledgement as one of the most skilled combat aviators of her generation. It should have been the basis for a distinguished military career that would have elevated her to the supreme levels of military aviation. Instead, it had signified the commencement of the conclusion of her service. General Thompson said, "Sophia, I need to comprehend what transpired with you. The final time I saw you, you were being advanced to major and designated to a prestigious flight training role. How did you conclude like this?" Sophia examined the small office where they were seated, her eyes absorbing the military decorations, unit photographs, and administrative documents that indicated it as belonging to a successful career officer. The difference with her own current situation was obvious and distressing. Sophia explained, David, much has transpired since Operation Thunder Ridge. Some of it was my decision, some of it wasn't. The abbreviated version is that my military career didn't endure the transition to peacetime, and my civilian existence didn't endure the transition from military service. General Thompson questioned, Sophia, you are one of the most talented aviators I've ever served alongside. How does someone with your abilities and credentials conclude homeless? Sophia responded, it's intricate. Following the war, the Army reduced in size and altered its priorities. Combat expertise became less important than peacetime credentials. Flying abilities that were critical during wartime became disadvantages during budget reductions and personnel decreases. General Thompson comprehended the wider context Sophia was describing. The military reduction following the conclusion of major combat activities had necessitated difficult choices about personnel retention and career progression. Numerous highly qualified combat veterans had discovered themselves excessive to peacetime needs despite their demonstrated abilities and service histories. However, Sophia's case appeared particularly unfortunate given her extraordinary abilities and heroic service history. Combat aviators with her credentials should have been maintained and advanced, not compelled out of service. General Thompson asked, Sophia, what precisely transpired? Was there a specific incident or choice that concluded your military career? Sophia's expression became more cautious, and she took multiple moments before replying. She explained, there was an inquiry following a training mishap. A student aviator was killed during a standard exercise that I was overseeing. The accident board determined that my instruction methods were too forceful and that I had neglected to maintain sufficient safety standards. General Thompson responded, that doesn't resemble the Sophia Rodriguez I knew. You were constantly extremely safety aware. Sophia continued, the accident wasn't my responsibility, but it transpired on my supervision and during a training program I was accountable for. In the post-war military environment, any unfavorable incident became justification for career termination. They presented me the option between acknowledging responsibility for the accident or confronting a court-martial that could have resulted in criminal accusations. General Thompson began to comprehend how Sophia's military career had been demolished by circumstances outside her control. The mixture of peacetime politics, risk-averse leadership, and the requirement for scapegoats following any training accident had created a circumstance where even exemplary officers could be compelled out of service. General Thompson asked, so you acknowledged responsibility to prevent the court-martial? Sophia replied, I acknowledged responsibility because it was the sole method to safeguard the other instructors in my program. If the inquiry had persisted, multiple other officers would have been implicated and their careers demolished as well. I accepted the blame to restrict the damage. Sophia's readiness to sacrifice her own career to safeguard her colleague officers was consistent with the character Thompson recalled. She had constantly positioned the welfare of others above her own interests, even when doing so arrived at substantial personal expense. General Thompson inquired, Sophia, what transpired after you departed the military? Sophia answered, I attempted to transition to civilian aviation, but my military record had been damaged by the inquiry. Commercial airlines were hesitant to employ aviators with questionable safety records, even if the underlying situations were unjust. I worked various positions: flight instruction, charter services, cargo transportation, but nothing stable or well compensated. And eventually, I made some inadequate financial choices and personal decisions that led to a downward trajectory. Lost my aviator's license due to medical concerns related to stress and alcohol. Lost my apartment when I couldn't make rent. Lost my vehicle when I couldn't make payments. Lost contact with most of my military companions because I was ashamed of what my existence had become. General Thompson listened to Sophia's account with increasing sadness and anger. The woman who had preserved his life and the lives of 13 other soldiers had been forsaken by the system she had served with distinction. Her sacrifice during Operation Thunder Ridge had been compensated with bureaucratic betrayal and institutional apathy. General Thompson asked, Sophia, how long have you been surviving on the streets? Sophia answered, about 3 years. I've been relocating from city to city attempting to find work or assistance, but opportunities are restricted for someone with my background and current situation. General Thompson questioned, why did you come here? Why now? Sophia gazed directly at General Thompson with an expression that combined hope with resignation. She explained, because I heard that you were stationed here, and I hoped that perhaps you would recall what we experienced together. I hope that perhaps you would comprehend that I'm not merely another person experiencing homelessness requesting charity. General Thompson responded, Sophia, of course I recall. I remember every detail of that operation and what you accomplished for all of us. You preserved my life, Sophia said, then perhaps you can assist me in preserving what's remaining of mine. General Thompson understood that Sophia's appearance at his base wasn't a coincidence or a desperate final option. It was a deliberately calculated choice by someone who comprehended that her options were restricted and her time was diminishing. General Thompson asked, Sophia, what type of assistance are you seeking? Sophia replied, I need a chance to reconstruct my existence. I need medical care to address the health concerns that cost me my aviator's license. I need stable accommodation while I get back on my feet. Most significantly, I need someone who believes that I'm capable of contributing something important rather than just being a burden on society. General Thompson comprehended that Sophia wasn't requesting charity. She was requesting the opportunity to earn her way back to respectability and self-reliance. Her request was for a chance to demonstrate that her current situation didn't define her capabilities or her value as a person. General Thompson said, Sophia, I want to assist you, but I need to comprehend what's realistic given your current situation and legal status. Sophia responded, David, I'm not requesting you to violate rules or compromise your position. I'm requesting you to assist me in accessing programs and resources that are available to veterans who have fallen on difficult times. I'm requesting you to vouch for my character and my potential for recovery. General Thompson began to consider the various programs and resources that were available to assist veterans experiencing homelessness. The military had developed extensive support systems for former service members who were struggling with the transition to civilian existence. However, accessing these resources required navigation of complex bureaucratic systems that could be overwhelming for people in crisis situations. General Thompson said, Sophia, there are programs that can assist you, but they require commitment to long-term recovery plans and readiness to work within structured support systems. Sophia replied, I'm willing to do whatever is necessary. I just need someone to assist me in getting started and to advocate for me when bureaucratic barriers arise. General Thompson made a choice that would transform both their existences. He stated, Sophia, I'm going to assist you in accessing every resource that's available to support your recovery. But more than that, I'm going to ensure that people comprehend who you are and what you've accomplished. Over the subsequent months, General Thompson worked relentlessly to assist Sophia in accessing medical care, housing assistance, and vocational rehabilitation programs. He also utilized his influence to guarantee that her case received priority attention from social services and Veterans Affairs organizations. More significantly, he began relating Sophia's account to anyone who would listen. He spoke about Operation Thunder Ridge, about the heroic rescue operation that had preserved 14 lives, and about the unfair circumstances that had led to her discharge from military service. Sophia's recovery was neither rapid nor simple. She struggled with health concerns, bureaucratic barriers, and the psychological challenges of reconstructing an existence that had been demolished by circumstances outside her control. However, she also exhibited the same determination and resilience that had made her an exceptional military aviator. Within a year, Sophia had regained her medical authorization for flying, found stable accommodation, and begun working as a flight instructor at a civilian aviation school. Her income was modest, however it provided the foundation for financial stability and personal independence. 2 years after her appearance at the base entrance, Sophia was employed as a chief aviator for a medical helicopter service, utilizing her military expertise and exceptional flying abilities to preserve lives in civilian emergency circumstances. Her career had come full circle, returning her to the type of life-saving aviation operations that had originally defined her military service. General Thompson attended Sophia's advancement ceremony at the medical helicopter service where she received acknowledgement as their most skilled and dedicated aviator. During his speech, he told the audience about Operation Thunder Ridge and about the aviator who had risked everything to preserve the lives of soldiers under fire. He stated, "Ladies and gentlemen, Sophia Rodriguez didn't just preserve my life 15 years ago. She taught me that true heroism isn't about single moments of bravery. It's about the determination to keep serving others even when the system fails to serve you." Sophia's response was characteristically humble and focused on the future rather than the past. She said, "General Thompson preserved my existence by believing that people deserve second chances and that past service matters when evaluating someone's potential. I hope to spend the remainder of my career demonstrating that his faith in me was justified. Today, Sofia Rodriguez serves as chief aviator for the largest medical helicopter service in the region, commanding a fleet of aircraft and aviators who provide emergency medical transport for critical cases throughout the state. Her military expertise and exceptional flying abilities have preserved hundreds of lives in civilian medical emergencies. General Thompson remains one of her closest companions and strongest advocates, frequently speaking about the importance of supporting veterans who have fallen on difficult times and ensuring that heroic service is never forgotten or abandoned. Sofia's account has become a model for veteran recovery programs, demonstrating that even the most difficult situations can be overcome when appropriate support is combined with individual determination and the recognition that past service provides the foundation for future contributions. Have you ever encountered someone whose current situation didn't reflect their true capabilities or past achievements? Sofia's account reminds us that heroism can be concealed by hardship and that some of our most valuable citizens may be invisible until someone takes the time to look beyond appearances. The general who barely glanced at a woman experiencing homelessness learned that some people carry their service with them long after their uniforms are gone, waiting for someone to recall that heroic actions create obligations that extend far beyond the moment when they occur. If you believe that heroic service deserves lifelong recognition and support, share this account. Because somewhere a veteran who once preserved lives is requesting help, not knowing that their moment to be remembered and honored might depend on someone recognizing that true heroes never stop being heroes, even when the world stops recognizing their worth. Sofia Rodriguez didn't just preserve lives during Operation Thunder Ridge. She proved that some debts can only be repaid by ensuring that heroic service is never forgotten and that those who serve others deserve to be served in return when their own existences need saving. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, you can subscribe to see more incredible accounts like this one.